The Mind Flayer wasn't always a giant spider monster in the sky. It was once just a cloud, a mist of darkness floating in an empty void. And its journey from formless shadow to the terrifying creature in Season 5 finale is one of the most horrifying stories ever told. This is the Mind Flayer's complete origin explained. Our story begins in a place called the Abyss, a dark world of endless storms and red lightning. This place existed long before humans, long before towns or cities or anything we would recognize. And in this ancient realm, something lived. But it wasn't a creature the way we think of creatures. It was a mist made of tiny silver-black particles, millions and millions of them, all floating together in the darkness. Here's what made this mist special. Every single particle could think. Every tiny piece had its own awareness, and all of them were connected to each other like a big web of thoughts. Imagine a cloud where every drop of water has a brain and all those brains are linked together into one massive mind. That's what the Mind Flayer was at the very beginning. It had no shape, it had no plans, it had no goals. It was just there, drifting through the storms, waiting for something to give it a purpose. The Abyss was its home, a place where time didn't work right, and the rules of our world meant nothing. In that timeless darkness, the mist floated for what could have been hundreds or thousands of years. We'll never really know because time in the Abyss is broken. What we do know is this: the mist was powerful but empty. It was like a weapon with no one to pull the trigger. It needed something from outside, something with will and desire, to wake it up and give it direction. Also, the particles that made up this entity were not ordinary. They were like a living virus, a cosmic infection that could spread and connect to anything it touched. In the late 1950s, something changed. A boy named Henry Creel from our world made contact with the Abyss by accident, as shown in Season 5 finale, The Right Side Up. Henry was already troubled, already broken in ways that made him dangerous. As a child in Nevada, he wandered into a cave near a military base, revealed to be an M-shaped cave. It was there he encountered a Russian scientist who had stolen a briefcase that contained experimental technology from a secret US program run by Dr. Brenner. Henry opened the briefcase and found a glowing black stone, a piece of the Mind Flayer. And the moment he touched the stone, everything changed. The dark particles physically entered his body through the bullet wound in his hand, and that's when it all began. The mist had touched a human mind for the first time, and it tasted something it had never known before: intention, purpose, hatred. When the boy came back to our reality, he had powers. He could move things with his mind. He could reach into people's thoughts. He could kill with just a look. He thought these abilities made him special, made him better than everyone else. But he wasn't just gifted, he was infected. Those silver-black particles had planted a seed inside him, and over the years that seed grew. The boy became angry and cruel. He saw humanity as pointless, a bunch of people eating and sleeping and working for no reason. He hated clocks and calendars and all the structure that normal life required. He thought of himself as superior, as someone who didn't have to follow the rules. And as he got older, his powers got stronger. He practiced on animals first, reaching into their minds and killing them from the inside. Then he turned on his family, using his abilities to torture and terrify them. Eventually, he killed them all in one brutal night. But using that much power knocked him out cold. And when he woke up, he was a prisoner. A device was put in his neck that shut off his abilities, and he spent years locked away, powerless and bitter. In 1905, Henry finally broke free. He ripped the device out of his neck and went on a rampage, killing everyone in the building. But before he could escape, 11 powers stopped him. She didn't kill him though, but she unknowingly did something worse. She tore a hole in space and threw him through it. He fell through a storm of fire and lightning, screaming as his body burned and twisted. The energy ripped him apart, turning him from a boy into something monstrous. And when he finally stopped falling, he landed back in the Abyss. But this time he wasn't a scared kid. He was a monster filled with rage and power, and he was ready to take control. Probably 11 killing him at the lab would have been way better, but if that had happened, the series wouldn't have happened, or would have had to take another storyline. Ha! That's just a joke. Let's get back to the Mind Flayer. When Henry arrived at the Abyss, this is the moment the Mind Flayer truly came to life. The particles recognized him too. They remembered the taste of his mind, and they were hungry for more. The boy reached out with his thoughts and began to shape the mist. He pulled the particles together, weaving them into a form that matched his darkest fantasies. As a child, he'd loved spiders. He'd drawn them over and over, fascinated by how they trapped and killed their prey. Now he used that childhood obsession as a blueprint. He molded the cloud into a giant spider-like beast with 6 long legs and a head shaped like a flame. By giving the entity this shape, the boy became its brain. He wasn't just a visitor in the abyss anymore, he was its general. And the Mind Flayer, finally given form and purpose, was ready to hunt. The real horror of the Mind Flayer isn't what it looks like, it's what it does. Those silver-black particles act like psychic glue. They spread out and infect everything they touch, connecting all the creatures in the abyss into one giant network. Suddenly, the monsters living in that dark world weren't separate animals anymore. They were all part of one massive body. If one of them saw something, they all saw it. If one of them felt pain, they all felt it. The Mind Flayer had become a hive mind, a superorganism where every creature was just a tiny piece of a much bigger whole. And at the center of it all was Henry, Vecna, controlling everything. The Mind Flayer's strategy was brilliant and terrifying. It didn't just attack, it infected. Those particles could get inside living things and take them over from the inside out. Once the mist got into your body, you weren't you anymore. You became a puppet, a tool for the hive mind to use however it wanted. This is what made the entity so dangerous. You couldn't just fight it with guns or fire. It could turn your friends against you. It could use your own body as a weapon. Henry, controlling it, understood people, understood how they thought and felt, and he used that knowledge to make the Mind Flayer even deadlier. He knew that the best way to conquer a world wasn't to destroy it from the outside. It was to rot it from the inside, to turn its people into traitors without them even knowing it. The first real attack on our world happened in 1983 when a doorway between dimensions was ripped open by accident. The Mind Flayer didn't waste any time. It sent creatures through the opening to test our world to see what kind of defenses we had. By 1984, it had learned enough. It reached through the connection and infected Will, who'd been trapped in the abyss. Will sadly became a spy, a living camera that fed information directly back to the Mind Flayer. The entity learned about our towns, our people, our weapons. Then it sent an army. Smaller versions of its monsters poured through tunnels under the ground, killing anything in their path. It was a smart plan, but the plan failed when the doorway was slammed shut by 11. When the connection broke, all the monsters dropped dead instantly. Without the Mind Flayer's signal, they were just empty shells. The hive couldn't work without the queen. But a piece of the Mind Flayer got left behind when the door closed. A fragment of those silver-black particles was trapped in our world. This piece hid in an old abandoned building and waited. It stayed quiet and still, conserving its energy. Then, in 1985, some scientists opened a tiny crack in the dimensional wall, and that fragment woke up. It didn't have enough power to bring the full Mind Flayer through, so it got creative. It started small, possessing rats and making them do its bidding. Then it moved on to people. These infected people became known as the Flayed, and what happened to them was disgusting. The Mind Flayer forced them to eat chemicals, to drink poison, preparing their bodies for something awful. Then, one by one, it melted them. Their bodies turned into liquid and pooled together into a horrible mass of flesh. From that flesh, it built a body for itself, a physical form made of meat and bone, shaped like the spider monster from the abyss. This meat puppet could walk in our world and hunt the one person the Mind Flayer feared most. 11. The Meat Flayer was a direct extension of the Mind Flayer's will. But once again, the plan fell apart when the doorway was closed. The moment the connection was cut, the meat body collapsed into a pile of dead flesh. The Mind Flayer was forced back into the void, defeated but not destroyed. Because here's the thing about those particles, they don't die easily. Energy like that doesn't just disappear. It waits, hides, and plans. Even after all these failures, the Mind Flayer kept trying. While battles raged in one place, the science lab had captured some of its particles in glass jars. They thought they could study them, maybe even use them as weapons. But the particles are never really dormant. The final battle in Season 5 finale revealed something shocking. The Mind Flayer's body wasn't just floating in the abyss. Henry had used the particles to create a fortress, a home base for his war against reality. When Steve, Robin, Jonathan, and the others attacked that fortress with fire, the one thing the particles truly feared, they weren't just hurting the Mind Flayer, they were hurting Henry too. Because the hive mind works both ways. He could control everything, but he also felt everything. When fire tore through the Mind Flayer's body, it tore through him as well. The entity was burned and broken. Vecna and 11 had their final battle, and ultimately Joyce smashed his head for all the pains he has caused her family, the kids, and Hawkins in general. The particles didn't vanish, but they scattered across the void like dust in the wind. Without a brain to guide them, they were just a cloud again. The Mind Flayer went from being an all-powerful force back to what it was at the start, a formless shadow drifting in the dark. The Mind Flayer is based on ideas from old horror stories. In fantasy games, there are creatures called Mind Flayers that look like people with octopus faces. They eat brains and control minds, and they live in groups ruled by one big elder brain. The entity in this story works exactly the same way. It's also inspired by cosmic horror, the kind of stories where ancient, powerful beings exist beyond human understanding. These beings don't care about right or wrong. They just want to consume and grow. The Mind Flayer fits this perfectly. It doesn't have human emotions. It doesn't feel guilty or sad. It just wants to spread and control.